present tense. Good Friday evening. Hopping on here instead of yesterday since I was tied up with some other things. So hope you're all having a great week. Thank you so much for responding to that poll, because that really helps me kind of get an idea of where to put our focus for these next few videos and all of that. But remember, you are always welcome to send me requests privately or in the group, either way. And those I will always prioritize. So what I'm going to talk about tonight is going to tie in with those poll options, but it's actually not one of the poll options, but it was a request from a member of the group. And anytime that I get those requests, I need to put those first, okay? Because usually these are timely situations. People need to, they're struggling, they're going through something they're struggling with, and they need to have some, shed some light on the topic now. So I will get to, sorry, I have a hair in my mouth. That's so frustrating. It's so gross, sorry. I will get to the other topics, of course, as we go along, no rush, right? But I do want to talk tonight about the request that was made, and that is on complex PTSD and emotional trauma. I'm adding emotional trauma to that because it's another way to kind of look at it, or another kind of like, it really kind of ties in with the same thing. So complex PTSD is kind of abbreviated as C-PTSD, so you might hear me saying that at times, but that is something that can be a result of being in a traumatic, abusive, narcissistic type of relationship. We see it a lot, with intimate relationships, of course. We also see it a lot with parent-child relationships, sibling relationships, lots of relationships with people you're close to or working close to, okay? So this can kind of tie in a whole bunch of different people in this group and your different walks of life. So I want to talk about this. And what I really want to bring home to you guys is that these symptoms of PTSD, and PTSD is post-traumatic stress syndrome. So when I say C-PTSD, that's complex post-traumatic stress syndrome. And let me back up for a minute, because I know that, when we think PTSD, we think of battle fatigue, right? We think of people who have been in wars. And yes, that is really real PTSD. But there's also PTSD that we go through that is very similar, just from being in an abusive relationship. But it doesn't need to be just physical abuse. We see the same kind of things with people who have been through emotional abuse, or closely in contact with someone who's narcissistic or toxic, okay? So just to clear that up, it's a real thing. And this topic is real near and dear to my heart, because I have had it, and I have gone to special therapy for this type of thing, and have worked through a lot of issues as a result of PTSD. So anyway, the first thing I want you to realize is that symptoms don't just go away with time. We have this idea of, okay, I got out of the bad relationship or the bad job, or I've cut off a family member that was real toxic, whatever it is. I'm completely cut off from this person, therefore I am out of the woods. No, the thing with CPTSD and emotional trauma is that it lingers, and it lingers a lot until it is properly dealt with. So that's something I need you to understand. So really, these emotional states and behavior patterns do hang around and remain the same even after we've removed ourselves from this toxic environment or relationship, okay? So this is what kind of keeps us stuck, is just like the name, post-traumatic, okay? So the trauma that's going on while you're in the relationship is terrible, but the effects of that trauma do not just go away because you removed yourself from the relationship, all right? And that's what a lot of my coaching program is based around, is how to, first recognize what the problems are and then address them head on and deal with them, right? Okay, so there's five common features with that I've learned about with CPTSD. There is a woman named Michelle Neves who is a coach, a narcissist abuse coach, and she's amazing. And she put together these 5 features that we can really look at, and we can delve into these, but I'm just going to give them to you, okay? So we'll talk about these features, then we're going to talk about the symptoms that you can that I'll give you, that You could think about, is this something that I have in my life? Is this something that I'm suffering from? Okay. And then we're going to talk about these developmental issues that happen as a result of it. Okay. So the 5 features of it are: number 1, emotional flashbacks; number 2, toxic shame. Okay. So toxic shame can be inwardly as well, right? So, but toxic shame is something that that you experience as a result of it. Number 3 is self-abandonment. Number 4 is a vicious inner or outer critic in your life. Okay. So if you have one of those, meaning like it's either your own self or it's someone else that you're letting be this vicious critic in your life. And number 5 is having social anxiety. Okay. Those are the 5 main features of CPTSD. Now, if you're still in a relationship that's toxic, I'm going to give you some ideas of some symptoms, okay, of what this might feel like if you're still tied into the relationship. So first of all, you're going to feel confused, all right? So there's, you're going to feel like it's really hard to hold on to reality. Okay. And you're going to question your own judgment and conclusions a lot. For those of you that are prone to like other issues like OCD, these types of things are going to be heightened. Like if you have a doubt form of OCD, where you're needing to, you're not really trusting your own judgment, this type of thing is going to be heightened, if you are in a toxic relationship. And I've experienced that. So these things happen as a result of being gaslighted for so long, okay? And that's a term that I'll talk about when we get into our terms, okay? But, gaslighting we've talked about a bit. And that kind of moves into the second symptom, which is you feel like you're going crazy. And in a way, you kind of are, all right? Because there's a part of your brain that controls the executive functioning, and for some parts of your brain, this just is not quite working right, okay? So we actually see some changes in the brain as a result of abuse. I am serious, crazy. Okay, so because of this too, we can also feel like, well, not because of this, but the third thing, we can really feel like almost like we're detached from ourselves, right? Like when we're going about our life and we're doing what we're doing and everything, it's almost as if we're, our body is performing the motions. We're doing what we're supposed to do. We're at work, we're at home, we're engaging with our family and our friends, but we feel as if we're watching it in a movie. We're just feeling pretty detached from the experiences that we're participating in, okay? Another thing that we notice a lot when a person is still in the abusive relationship is they justify the abuser a lot. And so most of the time, the abuser has most people fooled, especially those kinds that are just more passive aggressive and they aren't so out there. The abuse, hidden abuse, okay? So a lot of people don't even notice that it's going on. And the abuser has them completely fooled because all of the abuse happens behind closed doors. Well, there are sometimes these people who can see through it, okay? And so they might find it strange that you're tolerating it, right? They might think, they can't understand why you think it's okay and you continue to let it happen. And you end up minimizing it. It's not that bad because this, it's not that bad because I've done this, right? And we compare maybe like what we've done that's bad and we almost think like we deserve it, or that it's like a tit for tat thing. It's just real unhealthy. But this can be really frustrating to those friends and family members on the outside who care about us because they don't understand why we keep going back into it. So that's another red flag of PTSD. Now, if you're out of the relationship and you've gotten out of that toxic environment, there's still a lot of PTSD symptoms that we can see. So the first one is this deep sense of loneliness, almost like a pathological sense of loneliness, okay? And this can even drive us back to that toxic relationship because that loneliness is so real. And it can even drive us because our self-esteem is so down. That's another symptom of it. Your self-esteem's so in the gutter. It can drive you into another toxic relationship. So we keep repeating these patterns, and that kind of goes in with a lot of other stuff, that we can get into, but that's one of the symptoms. Another symptom once you're out of the relationship is having some sort of an attachment disorder, okay? Not saying you have an actual disorder, saying that you're feeling anxious and avoidant of other people, okay? In the idea of of new relationships, okay? That's one of mine. The third one, another symptom here is being stuck in a negative emotional state. So after you've been around a narcissist, you learn to be your emotions. You learn that certain emotions are not okay to have. Maybe like being happy or joyful. So you start to maybe if, like, for an example, if you're in a relationship with a narcissist and you experience something that makes you happy, and so you're outwardly happy, you get, maybe they accuse you of something like, oh, are you cheating on me? Is that why you're so happy? Did you find someone else? Blah, 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 blah. Just an example. So you start to associate this emotion of happiness with something bad is going to happen, or you just hide the fact that you're happy. You don't really show it, okay? So what that ends up doing is leading to this fourth symptom of being almost like you're stuck in this conditioned response, okay? So if you struggle with with this type of thing, you're maybe going to struggle more with depression, anxiety, and this inability to be joyful because you've been conditioned into, hey, when I show this joyful emotion or happy emotion, I am shot down, right? Something, I'm accused of something. Okay. So, another one that's really big that I don't think people realize, but I've seen it in people, is dissociation. And what I mean by that is you might be like, for example, go, keep yourself so dang busy all the time so that you don't have time to stop and just feel. Okay, that's a big one. And that is one that I think a lot of us get stuck in, even when we're trying to avoid any kind of emotion. It doesn't need to be just a PTSD symptom. A sad one, number 6 would be suicidal ideation. Okay. And number 7, the fight or flight response is heightened. Okay. So you react a lot strongly to something, that you would have an emotional response to. So, and it's usually not about that thing that triggered the emotional response. It's because you're actually feeling emotional about something much more deeper than the actual thing that triggered it. That's a sign of CPTSD as well. So here is the last part I want to talk to you about. So what happens is when we don't deal with these things, or even before we've dealt with them, okay, there's these what we call developmental arrests. And basically what it means, I mean, there's a big fancy definition of this, but basically what it means is we get these coping skills that keep us stuck in certain feelings. Okay, these behaviors and patterns. So for example, you might feel like if I'm not allowed to have feelings, I'm going to cope by turning off my feelings. But think about this. How can we really protect ourselves and grow if we can't feel joy, right? So this type of thing really affects the following, and I'm just going to list these off. Self-acceptance, sense of identity, self-compassion, self-protection. There's relationship difficulties. You can't relax. You're constantly in fight or flight mode. Your self-expression is stunted. Your self-esteem down, right? And your coping skills aren't very good. Okay, so the point of all of this, to wrap it up, is that leaving the toxic relationship or the environment that you're in is the first step towards healing. But there is so much more we need to do, because even after we leave, we can still feel really stuck. That's normal. Okay. So it's important to learn about what you can do for yourself so that you can heal and move forward. And this is one of the things that I delve into very deeply in my program, Break Free. And that I saw that there was some interest in that in the poll. I will talk about it more and tell you how many spaces I have. There are already a few people that are signed up for that. There are still some spaces left. I'm going to talk more in depth and give you an overview of that course later this weekend. So be looking for that. I'm super excited to tell you about it, and be thinking about if it's something that you think you might benefit from, and we'll have a chat. So I hope that this video was helpful. I appreciate the request, and let me know as always if there's any questions, and I will see you guys later on this weekend. Have a great rest of your evening. Mwah! Take care.